Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another exciting edition of the internationally known Two Bucks Sports Podcast, coming at you live in living color, actually a night early. You're hearing this on your regularly scheduled day, but Uncle Buck, my infamous, not esteemed, maybe infamous colleague, has some plans tomorrow night on Wednesday night that he shared on our Instagram Live. Uncle Buck, welcome to the podcast a day early.
Hey, what's up, Rusty? Yeah. So me and my wife, we're going to do our part, our civic duty as Grizzlies fans tomorrow night. We're going to catch game number 5 in the FedEx Forum tomorrow night. And so Rusty was gracious enough to move us up a night early and stay up a little late because your boy had to coach a 8U softball game tonight. And they said they wanted to be called the what did they say last week? So we have this tradition to where we all put our hands in, and I say, "What do y'all want to break it down to?" And then tonight they said, "All right, what do y'all want to break it down to?" And they said, "Donuts." I was like, "Okay, that's something I can get behind." 1, 2, 3, donuts. And so we got the win tonight. The Lady Donuts got the win to move to 1-0. My
All
own
right.
flesh and blood, Chloe, went 3 for 3, got an out at second. And so a hard nip-tuck game came out with a W tonight. And so here we are now, amped up, and I am just chomping at the bit, ready to go.
Let's go. Well, if you tuned in on YouTube, we appreciate our YouTube watchers that check us out every week, giving us likes and comments on there. You notice a third not so good looking face on your screen tonight. A good buddy of ours. We've talked about him on the podcast. He's in our fantasy football league. We've given him some crap over the last few weeks, so we thought it was only fair for him to come in and defend his mayonnaise drinking quarterback from the University of Kentucky. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in Mr. Aaron Ivey to the podcast. Aaron, what's up, buddy?
What's going on, fellas? Man, I'm telling you, this is exciting. I know y'all give me all kinds of crap, but I love you guys, and I appreciate it.
I tell you, if there's one person that I feel like deserves a shot to come and to talk back at us, it's Aaron, because we if it weren't for Will Levis, we wouldn't have much bad to say about Kentucky or our good friend Aaron. And so we're going to give him the floor in a minute. We're going to get to the NFL draft in a little bit, and he's going to defend why an organization should spend top of the first round pick on a quarterback that has his coffee with a spoonful of mayonnaise.
And eats a banana with the peel, which is just wild, man. That's just, ugh.
Yeah. So
anyway,
we will get to that. But first, I think, Rusty, what you got for us first?
So we always appreciate when our fans interact. We've got Aaron here on the show. We gave him a lot of flack back during fantasy football too for team names and his team decisions, and I believe he won a couple of the not so esteemed Drewski awards. But giving shout outs where they're due. But we appreciate our fans interacting with us. We had a few on our Instagram Live the other night, and a buddy of mine that was on the golf trip last week, new friend of mine, just met him on the golf trip. His name is Aaron Tim Buren. Aaron lives up in Jamaica Plains. He's got a cool job. He works for DraftKings, and his job is to create cool graphics. He works in design. He helps keep the website up and fresh, new ideas coming forward so that, dopes like us will go on there, spend money, and bet if we could in our states, right?
Right.
So big shout out to Aaron.
We can do daily fantasy through DraftKings.
True. We can't fully bet either here in South Carolina.
Mississippians can. I don't know about South Carolina.
No, can't in South Carolina. I don't even know if we can do daily fantasy, to be honest with you. Anyway, so Aaron is an Oakland Athletics fan. He was born in Australia, grew up moving around a little bit, and so he's a big A's fan. He said a cool story. He said that when he was a kid and his parents wanted to take him and his family out for dinner, they take $20 and go to an A's game, $5 a piece for $1 hot dog nights, and just have a ball with all other 300 fans in the stadium.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. That sounds like the best money you could spend.
That's what I'm saying. But as we all have seen, the Oakland Athletics are packing up and getting out of Dodge. They are following a recent trend in professional sports of moving their franchise to Las Vegas, which will give them a hockey team, a football team, and now a baseball team.
Not to mention 2 of the teams that's relocated to Las Vegas came from Oakland.
Right. Yeah. So looks like a big exodus. Everybody seems to be getting out of California, even the sports franchise. But anyway, It begs the question, guys. Aaron asked me if we would attack this on the podcast, so here we are. When a team relocates, I can relate. I was a Vancouver Grizzlies fan when I was a kid, mostly because of Bryant Reeves. He was this big fella, played in the post from Oklahoma, got drafted early by the Vancouver Grizzlies. I was a big fan, and he was an even bigger flop when he got to the league.
Big country.
Big
country. That's right. Big country. Oklahoma born and bred, came to the league, but didn't pan out. Anyway, in that inspired me to be a Grizz fan. Then they moved to Memphis. They got closer. So for me,
you hit the jackpot. Yeah.
I got lucky because they moved from way out in Vancouver, and my country butt was never going to make it to Vancouver for a game. But I'll go to Memphis. That's an hour and a half away. So it begs the question, fellas, and I've got some thoughts. I'm curious on y'all's. What if you lived in Oakland? What if you lived in Seattle? And all of a sudden, your beloved Supersonics back in the day, now your Oakland Athletics, up and moved to a different town. Do you follow them? Do you pick the next closest team? Is this your free reign, that once in a lifetime, hey, I'm going to pivot and no longer be an A's fan. I'm finally going to pick a winning team. Again, Aaron lives in Boston. He could be a Red Sox fan. Thoughts?
Well, first, for me, if I put it in my shoes, and the only professional team I'm a Cardinals fan, but the Memphis Grizzlies have my heart and soul when it comes to professional sports. If they were to move, I don't know that I could watch the sport anymore. And is that crazy? Because I feel so invested, and I'm close enough to where I feel like I'm part of the community. And that's the thing with the Grizzlies, as opposed to a lot of other, especially big market teams, is that the Grizzlies are as intertwined into Memphis as any team is with their city and their community. And so I don't know. Part of me says, because I've grown to love the players. So if you're asking me if I could root for John Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. and Desmond Bain and everybody if they were playing, say, in Las Vegas, yes, but not as hard as I am now. I mean, there's just something about the tangibleness of it, whatever that word is. There's something about
tangerine,
that.
Right?
Yeah, something about that tangerine that I can go and I can be there, and all the people that talk about them sound like me, and we're all Southerners, and it's all like. There's just something about it. Like, this is the same reason I got big into the New York Giants, because they drafted Eli, and he was my first favorite player, was Eli Manning.
I'm sorry.
Well, Eli's not there anymore, and so I don't really cheer for the Giants anymore. And so I don't know. It's odd. I will say for fans that do have teams, it is one of the few scenarios where I would say you have the ability to be a free agent. You can pick again, because I'm very much my dad raised me to root for certain teams, and I can never stop. Like, you're switching teams is not something that you do, and I frown upon it. Bandwagon folks are the worst. I can't stand them. Be with your team when they suck. Be with them when they're great. But in this particular situation, I think you can enter into sort of a fan free agency a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I moved down here 9 years ago, and I watched the Vancouver Grizzlies. I used to love, when they moved to Memphis and had Stromile Swift. I used to love Stromile Swift. I don't know what it was about him, but you can tell when you go to a Grizzlies game, when you put something Grizzlies on, everybody makes you feel a part of the community.
Right.
That's kind of like the Cardinals as well. I'm a huge Cardinals fan.
We outnumber Rusty. There we go.
Sure do.
We're going to pivot. This is a Cardinals
friends.
Podcast tonight. You're not going to stop this.
I need to pick better friends.
I mean, Cardinals Nation is huge. You play the Cardinal way, and I really, that's a hard question, because I grew up 2 hours from St. Louis, and we went to a lot of Cardinals baseball, and I'm a Niners fan as well, which is crazy, being from Kentucky and rooting all the way across the country. But I don't know if I could follow the Niners, but I could follow the Cardinals wherever they went. But
yeah.
It also seems like if it's the closeness that you are, proximity to the team, that makes it easier for you to follow them, to stay with them.
Yeah, if you say, for instance, let's put it in this scenario. So the Seattle Supersonics left and went to Oklahoma City. So if those fans from Seattle switch their allegiances to Oklahoma City, and because they love Kevin Durant or Westbrook or whoever, now say, because there's talks of expansion into Vegas and back to Seattle if they can ever build an arena in Seattle, they put another team there. You free reign to jump onto the Seattle Ponies or whatever they're going to call them.
Listen, they've already got one cool nickname in the Kraken for their hockey team. I love all things Seattle Kraken. It's a great mascot, logo, color scheme. They hit an absolute home run with that. So I
what's
imagine
your thoughts, Buckets? What do you think?
Something cool so I've been thinking about this a lot since Aaron asked me. I think I agree. I think so. Like, I moved to the East Coast. I'm much closer now to the Charlotte Hornets. I'm much closer now to the Carolina Panthers, Carolina Hurricane, Atlanta Falcons, but I'm not switching my allegiance. I'm still a Grizz fan. I go see them anytime they play in Charlotte. They usually play in Charlotte in January, early February. And so I think moving is different. I think you can still stay connected.
Yeah, you moved, so you've got to stay.
Yeah, I moved. It was my choice. I moved to South Carolina, right? Memphis, the Grizz didn't leave.
Right.
And so I agree. I think if your team leaves your community, that's your chance. That's your chance at a fan free agency. I don't think there's when I grew up, I'm a little different. I grew up a Chicago Bears fan. I still root for the Chicago Bears in the NFC, but my first NFL game was a Tennessee Titans game. And so fell in love with the Titans, Aaron McNair, Eddie George, Javon Curse. And so I'm a little different there, but I think if your team leaves, I think if, like you said, you're part of that team, that's part of your fibers. Like, right, when I wear my Grizz stuff to a game, when I wear my, Grizzlies hat or my We Don't Bluff t-shirt, my Memphis versus Everybody shirt I had on last night, like, I'm part of that. Like, you're in the grindhouse, you're together. But if they up and left, I'm like you. I'd root from afar, but I'm not enough of an NBA fan that I don't know that I'd follow them as closely. I love the Grizz, and I'll keep up with the NBA. I'll watch the playoffs games. I love, like, Jimmy Buckets last night. I had him on my computer watching some of that. Just darn. But
and the thing for me
too, all in all, I don't know that I would follow him. I think that's your free agency period.
And for me, I think what would be hard would be the betrayal by the ownership that comes in when you relocate a franchise. Like, if Robert Parra, the owner of the Grizzlies, the majority owner, the decision maker, being a Silicon Valley guy, decided he was going to move the team to Northern California, well, he's the general manager of the Grizzlies, and so he is responsible for my fanhood, basically. Mm-hmm. If you want to go that far up the chain, and so there's a huge sense of betrayal from fans in, the tri-state area if you leave.
We have a great example of this in the NFL. In our lifetime, right. Baltimore, they lost their franchise. The Browns the Browns shut down for a little bit. Baltimore lost their franchise, got it back. Like, we have this in our lifetime, and there was some upheaval in Cleveland when the Browns shut it down. There was some unruliness when, they abandoned the NFL for a little bit. So, I mean, we've seen an example of this, and we've seen it not go well.
Right. And what happened there was, what happens with most of them is that there was ownership problems. Maybe it was a new stadium. And so Cleveland moved, I think, right?
Mm-hmm. Weren't they the ones that moved to Baltimore and created they were the ones that moved to Baltimore, created the Ravens, and they moved within the division. Like,
well, no, because the Baltimore Colts are the ones that left in the middle of the night, moved out in the middle of the night to go to Cleveland.
Right.
And so I get fuzzy on that, but look at the St. Louis Rams. I mean, that is, being a St. Louis fan, I know that it's a sports town, and it's primarily a baseball town.
Sure.
But they are great sports fans in St. Louis that just got upheaved. They were left free agents basically because Stan Kroenke chased the almighty dollar to Los Angeles,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, so, like you said about betrayal, a lot of my family was St. Louis Rams fans, and when they left, they were heartbroken.
Right.
I mean, they didn't want to go. They didn't want to go do anything.
Yeah.
That's part of the reason why I said I don't even know if I could watch the sport. I've got sweat equity. I got tears. I got heartbreak wrapped up in the sports that I love, the teams that I love them until they'll kill me, you know? Yeah. And that would come close.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. I was up till 1:30 a.m. Eastern time and had a 7 a.m. patient at a clinic about 40 minutes away. And so, like, y'all know me. Y'all make fun of me all the time. I'm in bed at 9:30. So I put a lot of equity out last night to watch that overtime loss. And so my teams matter to me. And yeah, that would be as close to a heartbreak as I could come as a sports fan.
And I really hate it for the people of Oakland specifically. Because it's such, I mean, you watch those Raiders games for years. I'm sure the reason I'm assuming for Aaron, he can correct me if I'm wrong, but the reason why he's a 49ers fan is probably because back in the day, when you were watching nationally televised NFL games, you watched the Niners, the Raiders, the Cowboys, or the Giants. I mean, that was the big four, or the Steelers, big five. And that's why there's those fan bases are so nationwide, is because they're the only ones televised. And so for the people of Oakland, I mean, you've got nothing now. And I know San Francisco is just across the bay, but San Francisco is a whole different level of person. You look at the old Oracle Arena, Roracle, that Golden State was playing. The place was a riot in there. It was loud. It was fierce to go play in there. And it was the people of Oakland that had filled it up. And they were working class folks who were not financially elite. Anybody could get in. But when they moved to San Francisco across the bay, that demographic changed, because to get into a game at the Chase Center is 5 times the amount of money, because you're now entertaining the Silicon Valley elite. And it's just a whole different demographic. And it even bleeds through on the television when it's supposed to get loud. It's not the same as Roar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like that's what is so special about Memphis and about small markets in general, is that these stands are filled with working class folks. You know, the demographic is so much different, and that's the reason why in North Mississippi, you see me. This is what I wore to a game tonight at the ball field here at the park in Ripley. And I saw a fella with a Grizzlies shirt on. His son had a Grizzlies shirt on. And I was like, go Grizz, you know? And it's like, it's one and the same. You know, we're working class folks that try to go to as many games as we can and cheer for the team, you know?
It's a blue collar city, and I'm a blue collar player, man. We relate. We're all in this together. We don't bluff, man. It's Memphis versus everybody, you know? You get a part of that. Even the 300 fans that are attending athletics games now, they're getting outsold by most SEC stadiums, but those fans, it matters obviously to some of them. And, you know, and like Drew, kind of to your point, Aaron, I'll let you kind of wrap us up here a little bit. Like, these people are invested in it. It's not their fault. It's the owners. The city doesn't want to build them a new ballpark. The owners
that's what happened with the Rams.
And so they're leaving. They're gone.
That's what happened in Seattle, was that the Key Arena was running down, and the elected officials in Seattle would not pass a bill to fund a new stadium, so they left.
Bro, and what you hate to really see is, man, the A's have a rich history. You know, going back to Mark McGuire and all the Bash brothers that were there, who brought the 80s. You know, the A's were legit, you know, back then. And then, you know, like the movie Moneyball was
Billy
made.
Bean,
had the what was it, the 21 game winning streak or whatever it was. You know, you just hate to see that rich history go aside because of somebody's, you know, ego, basically.
Yeah.
And I can see it. I mean, I can see, you know, you watch an A's game, and it's a baseball problem, really, more than it is an A's problem when you're talking about the disparity in money that you can spend to buy a team. Right. Because the A's and their ownership, you know, they're just not going to spend any money. And so they've kind of been just a poverty franchise with just little glimpses of success. You know, they made the playoffs a few years back, but outside of that, I mean, you just don't have much to cheer about. And when the owners don't spend the money and build a good product, you lose investment. Because what's not talked about is that in communities like Oakland and in Memphis, like I said, they're working class folks going to games. Well, that's discretionary income that is spent, and it means more to us when we spend the money than it does people in New York or San Francisco.
Well, and they employ people. They employ your neighbor as an usher, and they employ your aunt in the concession stand, and that money goes to a local community. They go to United Way. They help better the community. There's so much that the players do for the community. Like, it becomes a part of who you are and what you do in the city. I mean, I've seen Grizz players out on Beale and Overton Square, and it's just like they're rock stars. They run this city because they're these huge ball playing celebrities on the teams that we love. And you get that personal connection in a small market, especially because it's us against them, right? We're always, like Drew, to your point, we're always going to be the underdog, the little brother, you'll never be a San Francisco, a New York, or a Boston market. But Memphis is a great basketball city. Oakland is a great sports town. They're passionate about their teams. The city doesn't want to keep them there.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. But to circle back to the original question, people from Oakland, I know you probably want to shun the Warriors because they left you. Come on board. Yeah. We're still early enough in the process, and we're not going to win the title this year. So it's okay to jump on the bandwagon now. You're in free agency. Come on over. We'll welcome you with open arms.
Come to the fold. Welcome to the 901.
They're one of the most exciting teams in the NBA too.
Who?
They're awesome.
The Grizzlies?
Awesome to watch. Yeah, the Grizzlies.
Okay, good. I thought we were talking about the Warriors. I was gonna shut down your guest intro.
No.
So let's transition into last night, if that's what you had next, Rusty.
Yeah.
So, for all of you who have not checked your score, checked your scores app to see and hadn't seen what happened, the Grizzlies lost in overtime last night, by 5 points, right? In overtime.
6 points.
6 points.
111.
In overtime to the Lakers. And if there's one thing worse than losing a playoff game, it's losing a playoff game that goes into overtime at 12:30 local time. So there's a lot to talk about in this game, and we're going to get in the NFL draft later, so we'll try to not go forever. But Rusty, after the game, what was your first thought as to what the game was?
To me, I put this on Twitter last night. I think it was kind of a watermark for us. Like, hey, we're not there yet. This is what we need to be. We went out and got Luke Kennard, who was great during the regular season, finished over 48% from three, and is gone non-existent in the playoffs. The Rui Hachimuras are not going to have these continued big games, but I feel like the Lakers, what pieces they got what they needed to become where they are now. And I was frustrated. I was numb because it was way past my bedtime, but I was frustrated in a sense of we had a shot at that. And I know we made a run at OG, but even I don't think OG would have put us over the edge that we would be up 3-1 on the Lakers right now. I think he helps us, but I don't think he helps us that much. But it was just frustration of what could have been. And like I said, I tweeted out last night as soon as the game was over, I hope the front office watched this game with the summer in mind, recognizing that we need some pieces parts. We need some big help, and we are so bad at wing defense. We need some wings who can defend.
Well, for me, we lost a 6-point game, which was brutal to bettors. Did you see the line closed at 4.5?
Yeah.
And we found Austin Reeves with 0.3 to go while down 4. It was just brutal for bettors. Yep. For me, it's frustrating because I feel like we haven't played well. And let me expound on that. So, game 3, I'm kind of throwing it away. We got down early. We came back, clawed back, lost by 10. Okay. Game 4, it felt like we were in it the whole time. something felt weird about it. It felt like we were getting good shots all game long to me. And this played out in the stats I'll get to in a minute. But ultimately what it came down to was we went 9 for 42 on 3-pointers.
Mm-hmm.
Greg Popovich said a few years back when the NBA started going to lay it up, tray it up kind of offenses where you're either shooting threes or layups. We're not shooting pull-up jumpers mid-range. He said it's kind of frustrating and it's kind of simple at the same time because you can look at a box score and say who won and who lost by looking at who made the most threes. And he's right. And the Grizzlies shot 9 for 42 from 3. And the Grizzlies are never, ever, nor any team going to win when you shoot 9 for 42 from 3.
No.
And so if you look at shot quality, and I've talked about this on the podcast before, shot quality is a Twitter account that looks at the shots that were taken by taken into consideration where the shot was taken from, who's taking the shot, closest defender, and what your odds are that you're going to make that shot. And then it extrapolates that throughout the game and outputs a final score. According to shot quality, the Grizzlies win that game based on just the shots they take. When the ball leaves the hand, here's the odds that he makes it, here's the odds that he misses it, and we give him credit for the points if he's supposed to make it. Pretty simple concept. The Grizzlies win that game. And so for me, I'm watching it. I see it. We are in a horrible slump. And so we're down 3-1. And I'm not by any means trying to make light of it because there's something really serious I want to get to in just a second. And Rusty knows exactly what I'm going to talk about. But you're down 3-1. But if you can win tomorrow night, you're winning at home. Okay? We're the best home team in the league this year. We finished 30. What was it, Rusty? 32-9, 35-6. All right, 35-6 at home, and we're favored by 5-6 points. You win that game, it's a one-game series at that point. You've got to look at it one game at a time, and you've got to go win one game in Los Angeles. I mean, you're not going to win any series. I can't remember a series off the top of my head where the home team won every game and went to 7, the home team won. There's a back and forth to this. You've got to win on the road at some point, and it's going to be an all-out effort. You've got to win Game 6, and then you're coming home again, one game at a time. I talked about it in the pregame Instagram Live we did. You've got to have a progression to the mean. Typically, when the Lakers went 35-9 in the first quarter in Game 3, there was a regression to the mean for them. They weren't going to play at that rate the whole game. You are what your numbers say you are at the end of the season. This Grizzlies team, whereas they are not the greatest on the season 3-point shooting team, post-trade line, they've been solid.
Yeah.
And you've got to get on track. And to get on track, you'd like to think that it will happen at home. I hope the moment's not too big for them. But what concerns me is what I thought was an absolute feather in the cap to the Grizzlies, the thing that the Grizzlies did better than anybody in the league, and that was building a culture. We have, I believe, are showing signs of a culture problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to get to that in just a minute. Let's put a pin in that. Aaron, I want to get your thoughts on that. I've got some pretty strong feelings around that very thing, Drew. But Aaron, I know you watched some of the game last night. Any takeaways from you?
Yeah, like I was saying a little earlier, I was like, I was a little frustrated how Ja and, was taken to the hole and just, the normal fouls that they get called, he was not getting a foul at all last night. It was a physical game. And I at the end of the game, I was a little frustrated with Dylan because, LeBron did not shoot the ball well from outside last night. And he got up into him instead of, laying off a little bit. And LeBron, of course, got that and one or whatever in overtime. Right. But, to me about that, I honestly don't think this is a series if Steven Adams and Brandon Clark are in the lineup. I really
doubt.
don't.
No
You
Not at
doubt.
know, and but watching last night, you know, it was a little frustrating, not getting the calls when for sure they should. It was even easily a foul.
I
You
agree,
know,
especially watching Austin Reeves get superstar calls and Ja
right,
was not getting any superstar calls.
That's
right.
the most frustrating thing. Austin Reeves, watching him play basketball. If I've talked with anybody about basketball in the last half a decade, you know that I hated James Harden in Houston.
Right.
And Austin Reeves plays the same way, except he's not as good. It's
Right.
just hunting
And you get
threes and hunting fouls.
Right.
And Austin Reeves does it on defense, where anytime he's bumped, man, he's just bailing. And the NBA's got to do something because you know they review every groin shot now apparently because they reviewed Jaren's last night, which was, and I'm cool with it. If it's obviously a point, it's a memo that was sent out like cut out the groin shots, okay, and I'm fine with that. You know, if that's something that they are going to key in on, then that's fine. I get it, but if you're going to do that, you've got to be able to, and I don't want to slow the game down by constant reviews. There's got to be some kind of punishment for some of these just bogus flop calls.
So
especially if they get they win the Oscar, you know.
Yeah. And I pitched this week with a buddy. You know, you're right. The fines didn't do much because they would still do it. They just pay the fine, and then plus the NBA's kind of done away with that. But what if we made like it? I know it's subjective, but what if we made it challengeable? And if the team wins the challenge, that it was indeed a flop, like when X elbowed Austin Reeves allegedly in the chin and he went flying and got that foul, they'd review it and he didn't touch his chin. He's laying there holding his chin. What if they upgrade that to a flagrant 2 on the flopper and it's an ejection?
I mean, I'm cool with a suspension for flopping. I feel like that's like a breaking. That's the nth degree, you know. To start with, issue a technical, and then 2 technicals and you're out. You know, so I don't know. There was another call in that. There's another thing that happened in that game with LeBron kind of sliding underneath Ja mid jump. I hate that rule as well. In my opinion, if you are jumping towards the goal and you slide underneath somebody, that's as dirty of a play as you can do.
Absolutely. Right. It's the same thing with impeding a landing zone on like an outside 3. Same scenario.
It's the old Zaza Pachulia rule when he rolled Kawhi's ankle in the finals. Right. I guess that's Western Conference Finals when he was playing for the Spurs. You cannot put your foot in their landing zone. And it's kind of the same thing. Ja's going through the air, and Ja's reckless. I mean, let's call a spade a spade. Ja's not innocent. He leaves his feet without intentions a lot. Yeah. But it doesn't make it any less dangerous to slide up underneath him like that.
And Pete and Brevin were talking about this last night. Do they extend that half circle out another 3 or 4 feet to account for the athleticism? Do you make that a bigger protected zone? Because we've got guys like Ja, Russell Westbrook was like this, that just fly to the rim with such athleticism and recklessness that it's a danger to them and the person trying to draw the charge. Is that an option? Do we extend the protected zone another 2 or 3 feet?
I think so, but at some point, if you extend it too far, then you can, as a defender, you can become hunted. Because if you've got enough room to truck them and then get a layup, and because the restricted area is so long, I get it. I think what I've seen a lot of, and I kind of agree with, although I kind of need to see some stipulations put on it, is just get rid of the charge call altogether. If you're going to play defense that way, to where you're just going to go and stand in front of a moving truck, and it's the only play in sports, in basketball, where both players will hit the ground every time because they're trying to draw a charge. Play defense, contest a shot, move your feet. It just you're running up and it essentially just creating a wall in front of a moving person going full speed at the rim and standing there.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I don't disagree. I see that as an option. I think there's got to be something done. Something's got to change.
Well, and to go with the flop there, you know, they've constituted now the one shot free throw for, you know, taking a foul.
Yeah.
To help, you know, your guy get back down the court, you know.
And that killed the Grizzlies last year, the take foul. It was a great rule to put in.
Yeah, we got help with it last night with the clear path, but yeah, Aaron, go ahead. You're absolutely right.
But to that, I mean, you know, if a guy's dribbling down the court and you see the other guy, you know, how he throws his head up and he's trying to get, you know, the foul on the ball handler, that's a flop. I mean, that should be a one shot to me, one shot and out. You know?
Dude, we shot 27 free throws last night because every time D'Angelo Russell took a step, that head snapped back.
I was about to make that comment. Yep. Nobody fakes a foul call while dribbling more than D'Angelo Russell. It looks like a boxer just constantly taking a jab to the chin.
I think he's gonna get whiplash by the end of the first quarter.
He made me feel bad last night because I put on Twitter that he would us, and I still believe it. He just happened to make a couple shots. He was trash. I was mad when he fouled out.
Yeah,
he was absolute trash. He is a fine shooter and made big shots, so credit to him. But as a whole, in a 48-minute game, I was mad when he fouled out. He was trash.
Well, he won the game for him last night. You know, when he hit those threes.
He hit the shots, but they sagged off because, it was a driving kick. It was the shots that Rui Hachimura hit in the first 2-3 games.
Right. But last night, D'Lo hitting those shots, man, that broke them because
it was big.
You know, like you said about the 3-pointing, everybody's shooting the 3-pointers last night. It was bad for both teams.
Yeah. So,
kind of circling back to our original, Drew, you kind of brought this up a little bit. I wanted to address this because I've been salty about this all day. I brought this to your attention this morning, Drew. I was upset about this last night. All year long, we've heard from Ja, we ain't ducking no smoke. We're running up the chimney, was his quote.
We're fine in the West.
We're fine in the West. Dylan Brooks, just not even a week ago, said, I poke bears, and I don't give respect unless you put 40 on me. Since that moment, and I don't know if y'all saw this, I'm gonna find the link and I'm gonna put it on our $2 Twitter account of when LeBron dressed down Dylan before the game and told him, hit shots, you don't know nothing, you ain't done nothing, do your job. After he said, I poke bears, Dylan, as everybody knows, has gone non-existent. And what bugs me the most about it, and this is the culture issue, Drew, last night, Taylor Jenkins, Desmond Bain, Xavier Tillman went to the podium and did their media requirement. They sat out there, they fielded the tough questions, and kudos to Trevor Jenkins. He, when asked about that early challenge on that Xavier Tillman out of bounds, when we had multiple ones we could have challenged late in the third and fourth quarter, multiple ones, he owned up and said, listen, that was my bad. I messed up. I used that challenge too early. So he stood there and he took his lumps and he owned up to it. But you know the two players who did not last night? Dylan Brooks and Ja Morant. They ducked that smoke. They've been our mouthpieces all year. They've been the loudest. And when they fell apart and they got beat, they took the coward's way out, in my opinion. And I was furious when I saw that. Drew, you said it on this podcast, and so I want to get Aaron's take, and then Drew, you can take over. But if you're going to be loud, you're going to talk that smoke, you got to take your medicine when it doesn't go well.
And talking about the culture, man, the biggest thing for me about the Grizzlies, and you talking about the summer, is they need a veteran leader. They don't have the Zach Randolph and Tony Allens anymore and Mike Conleys. They need somebody to come in. Yeah, they need somebody to come in there, set them straight, because they have the talent to win it all. But they don't have that leadership to put them over the edge, in my opinion.
No, I agree.
I think you are 100% correct. As a rookie in the league, Ja had Solomon Hill and Jay Crowder, and they were instrumental to that team being better than they should have been that first year. I mean, I've said on this podcast, I come by it honestly. It's not something that I'm saying for the first time today. Y'all can go back and listen to it. I love somebody who chirps. I love an athlete that's emotional and that talks crap and goes out there and backs it up, I have no time and I have no sympathy and I have no respect for somebody who chirps, gets beat, and does not take their medicine at the end.
Right.
I think it's been a while since the I'm fine in the West. It's still applicable. It's still relevant. Ja, as your superstar, should field questions every single game. He's your superstar. He's your franchise player. He is responsible with how this team looks going forward. As far as the Grizzlies will ever go, and as bad as the Grizzlies will ever be, is totally hinging upon John Morant. And so he is the one that he's got to be there. Dylan does not have to be at the podium. Dylan does not have to ever be heard from, except for when Dylan Brooks decides to chirp.
Mm-hmm.
And Dylan Brooks decided that he would go poke the bear. And the bear is arguably the best player that's ever played the game. Undoubtedly one of the two best that's ever played the game of basketball. And for him to do that, and I talked about it yesterday on the Instagram Live, for him to do that, then get ejected from Game 3 for a groin punch, and then walk off without saying anything to the media, and he knows he's the story. He's not saying no to the media because he doesn't think he's going to get any questions. He's saying no to the media because he knows he's getting every question.
Mm-hmm.
And the questions are not going to be flattering.
Nope.
That's the equivalent of guaranteeing a win and then throwing up a goose egg. I mean, that's what he did. He knows he's the target of the media, and he bailed. And then to double down on it the next day and say that he has been made a villain by the media is something I only hear from politicians.
Yeah.
I mean, it is the most disgusting lack of self-awareness thing I've ever heard of in my life.
Yeah.
And then to go out last night, and he was fine last night. To start the game, first 3 possessions, he had 2 assists and no shot. First 2 possessions, he touched the ball twice, had 2 assists, and didn't shoot the ball. On the 3rd possession, he got a layup and made it. So I was like, all right, here we go. To end the game, they quit throwing him the ball. I mean, straight up second half, they would look at him and then look somewhere else. They quit throwing him the ball. And then to lose, and the nail in the coffin was when he was guarding the bear, LeBron, the guy that he likes to poke and called old. He's 40. He went at Dylan's chest, fouled him, and gave up a layup. And that was the nail in the coffin. And then he ducked it again. And then Ja ducked it as well. They teammates hand in hand. And that's the reason why I start to wonder about the culture a little bit, because we've always talked about Grizz culture. Grizz culture is next man up. No one's bigger than the team. We pass the ball. We share the ball. We play. We even play less minutes than everybody else because everybody's involved. We're 8, 9, 10 players deep. So, but what the culture in the playoffs has been a lot of talk and no accountability. That does not sit well with me. I've said I just spent the first, 20 minutes on this podcast talking about how I live and die with this team. Like, I'm invested as anybody can be, financially, emotionally. I mean, I've got my kids in here watching Grizzlies games, staying up past their bedtime. Nobody's more invested than me. And for them to go out and really just take the coward's way out. I mean, that sounds rough, but that's what that was.
100%.
That is what that was. And Taylor Jenkins said, I mean, credit Taylor Jenkins. He owned up to his mistakes. But before that game, he said they were an immature basketball team.
Mm-hmm.
He sees it. The problem is, and Aaron's right, and it's this, we talked about this at the trade deadline on this podcast. I want a vet.
Yeah.
Now, Kennard's a vet, but he's not a vocal vet. He's not a he's not a glue guy for a locker room. He's not.
We're missing the Vince Carter that we had, the Tayshaun Prince, the Jay Crowder, like you said, Drew Solomon. Those guys were the ones that could look John in the face and say, you need to stay your butt in the hotel room tonight. To look Dylan in the face and say, stay off the microphone and Twitter, whatever. Like, that's the kind of dudes we need. And
I don't want to make mountains out of molehills here, because I still think we win Game 6 tomorrow, or Game 5 tomorrow night. We go to L.A. trying to save the season. But it's what concerns me is I know what Steven Adams is. I know Steven Adams is vocal. Steven Adams, I don't know if y'all read this or not, but Jaren Jackson Jr. got elected to be a VP of the NBA Players Association at the All-Star break. And the guy that nominated him in the room was Steven Adams, who had no business being in Salt Lake City, Utah that week, except for that he flew up, went to that meeting just to nominate Jaren Jackson Jr. He is a leader in that locker room, and he's a vocal leader, and he's a henchman, and he will back you up. He will fight for you. And he had a players-only meeting in Denver, or before the Denver game, in which after the game, John went out to the Instagram Live and brandished a gun. And before that, Steven Adams was the one that held the players-only meeting saying, we need to straighten up on the road, and John ignored it.
Yep.
So that's what I worry about, is that somebody has to keep them accountable. Yep. And it's not being happened by the front office. No. I was listening to Verno today, and I'd forgotten about this, but it's relevant. Last year, you remember how the playoffs ended in Game 3. I think that's right. Yeah, Game 3, Dylan gets ejected for decapitating
Gary Payton Jr.
Gary Payton Jr.
Breaking his arm.
Yeah, and gets suspended for Game. No,
it was Game 4, and he got suspended for Game 5.
Right. And then, no, actually, I think it was Game 3. He was suspended for Game 4, and then Game 5, he plumb shot us out of the game.
That's right.
And then we lose in 6, and he bails on his exit interviews in the media day, the postseason media day, just bailed. And the front office came out with a statement that said he forgot.
He didn't forget.
Like that statement is enabling. I don't care how you want to frame it.
Yeah.
But if you're going to, that guy is at best the 4th best player on our team. And if you're going to enable that behavior from your 4th best player, there's no reason for me to think that you're going to call your superstar on the map and tell him to grow up.
No, I agree. You know, we've harped on it long enough. There's a culture issue. There's a lot of things that need to happen. I told somebody I'm optimistic about tomorrow night. I think we can win, and I think if we force Game 7, we win this series because we don't lose in the grindhouse, but we just got to get there.
And not to mention, real quick, the schedule works out well for us because we got 2 days off after Game 1. We got 2 days off after Game 3.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of the way, it's every other day. And
we're the younger team.
We are the younger team.
Yep.
Right.
And so LeBron hasn't shown signs of age yet because he has changed his game to be more of a facilitator, and he's been absolutely amazing. He was so incredible last night.
22 and 20 last night. What a line for a 38-year-old.
But at 38, I want him to play every other game and see how long he can hang.
Yeah.
Conditioning-wise.
Aaron, your 38-year-old knees holding up every other night playing high-level basketball?
No, I haven't touched a basketball, but I tell you, I coached 11U baseball, and it gets pretty rough catching some of these pitchers.
Yeah. How's your knees for adult softball at 38 years old?
I don't play anymore. They work well. They work well on the golf course, though.
There it is.
There you go.
But enough about the doom and gloom of the Grizz. Grizz win tomorrow night.
It's not all doom and gloom. We're gonna win game. I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna will them.
We need that.
Game 5. I will will this team to victory tomorrow night. And I'll tell you this. The last thing I will say. The Grizzlies in the last 2 playoff series that they've been in, they've been down, and when they come back home, they have blown the teams out. You remember last year, Golden State in game.
Beat the brakes off of them.
Yeah, game 5 or game 3. Was it 3?
Yeah.
We blew the doors off of them.
Yeah.
And then Minnesota came back. We blew the door. We're due for a blowout, and it's got to happen because
we're not going to keep shooting sub 40%.
Progression to the mean. Progression.
We're going to be all right. But transition. We've had some highs about the Grizz, had some lows, but on Thursday night of this week, there are going to be some guys' lives that change for the positive in ways that the 3 of us on this podcast will never be able to comprehend. They're going to shoot to a tax bracket none of us could ever possibly understand with some of these paychecks they're going to be getting. And, of course, I'm talking about the 2023 NFL Draft being hosted Thursday night. Over the course of a few days, we'll have college football's top prospects being drafted. And one of the reasons we have Aaron on the podcast tonight is my TV keeps trying to tell me that Will Levis is going to be a top 5 pick, a top 3 pick.
Top 10.
I've seen today.
If he makes it to 10, I'm going to be stunned.
There was a rumor today, and I about lost my marbles, that the Tennessee Titans are looking to trade up to the 3rd overall pick with the Arizona Cardinals to draft yet another project quarterback, and we already have Malik Willis. But Aaron, we brought you on here. We'll lead off with this, and then we'll do a little draft talk about some of our favorite teams, some of the hot trend lines. But Aaron, tell me why I should believe my phone and TV when it tells me Will Levis is a top 10 quarterback. I watched him play. Mississippi State plays him every year. And I watched this man play for the last couple of seasons. I didn't see a top 10 NFL quarterback.
You know, he's 6'4", like 230, right? He's what the NFL is looking for in a quarterback, because he's a physical runner as well. He's got the arm strength. We all know he's probably got the strongest arm in the draft. Now, with that, he's a gunslinger, but his decision making is going to have to improve if I think he's going to be a top 5 pick. But I think he's a leader, and he's very smart. You know, coming out of high school, I think he had a 4.0 and actually got a lot of offers from the Ivy League schools.
But my man uses mayonnaise in his coffee. He can't be that bright.
Oh, let him finish. We're getting to it.
Yeah, I know. That's the downfall on him, and eating bananas with a peel on it. But I tell you, he's a smart kid, and he comes from a pro-style offense. I mean, Kentucky has changed their offense a lot to try to help players get to the NFL. And I think, you know, with a little more protection, I think he could do well in the NFL.
So the thing with Will Levis to me is it's kind of a scouting thing when it comes to front offices, because, and it's the same way in every major sport, to get past the first round of like column interviews to get them to consider you, you've got to fit the build. And he's got the build. He's got the mold. He's got what you want your quarterback to look like. And to me, that ends in only one of 2 ways. If you're building based on how strong your arm is versus how well you read defenses, or how big you are versus how tough you are. It only ends in 1 of 2 ways. You either end up with Josh Allen or you end up with Paxton Lynch. That's my problem with Will Levis.
That's true.
But it's also the problem with that I have with any quarterback not named Bryce Young in this draft, to be honest. You know, that is the only thing that's got Richardson. I mean, he is only, you know, and he's more athletic. And so it depends on how you want your quarterback to look. You know, he fits the build for an more athletic quarterback. So to me, like Rusty said, we played Kentucky this year. Against Ole Miss, I watched Levis. He went 8 for 24, 220 yards, 2 touchdowns, but he had 2 fumbles in the red zone, one of which was with a minute and a half to go in the game, down 3. So your quarterback doesn't know the situation to where all you got to do is take a knee and tie the game. But instead, he fights for that extra bit and gets sacked and stripped, and Ole Miss wins the game. And that was not a good Ole Miss team.
Right.
Secondly, you just look through his – because I don't care about non-conference stuff. You played Miami of Ohio, Youngstown State, Northern Illinois, and Louisville. Yeah, so this quarterback also went 11 for 23, 109 yards, no touchdowns, and a pick against Vanderbilt in a loss. And bad games are bad games. Everybody has them, you know. But we're talking like a top 10 pick.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing. You watch the on-field production. You know, Anthony Richardson might be the only one that's worse than him, in my opinion, in some of the on-field stuff we've seen. They look great in shorts. They look great in, sure, Anthony Richardson hit the ceiling, big deal. Will Levis was kneeling and threw it 50 yards, hit the crossbar. That's cool.
Don't do that in the NFL. They will call you down.
Yeah.
if you're not touched.
Yeah.
That was the Jamarcus Russell thing, from his knees he could throw it 70 yards.
Right. Yeah, but that's my point. Like, this stuff looks great, but when the pads are on, and the closest thing you see in college football to the NFL is the SEC, particularly SEC West, but the SEC in general, the results are vastly different because that's when he has to use what's between his ears. He may be the smartest dude in the draft. He may do awesome on the Wonderlic and pass the personality test and do all these great things in the testing. But when the pads are on, the lights are bright, he has struggled to make big plays. And he's going to be facing that same level of talent and then some week in and week out. The problem I also have with it, Aaron, I'll punt back to you, no pun intended, but is because if Will Levis your quarterback, going to be doing a lot of that. But anyway, like the team that's linked to him a lot in rumors is the Indianapolis Colts, whose quarterback is Matt Ryan, who is not an NFL caliber quarterback anymore.
It won't be Matt Ryan.
And so he's going to go to a situation where he's going to be forced to play this year. And he is not a this year quarterback. He needs to sit behind somebody. And that's why he's been linked to the Titans to be able to back up Ryan Tannehill. But thoughts on that, Aaron? Do you like going to a team where he's got to be the man versus where he's got some time to grow?
So my thing about going to the Colts, who are the last two quarterbacks the Colts took in early rounds?
Andrew Luck,
Peyton Manning.
Andrew Luck, Peyton Manning, right? So they've had pretty good luck. Pun intended.
Yeah, but that's apples and oranges when it comes to like coaching staffs,
Right. And
those two guys had very successful college careers.
And I 100% agree with those. But, like what did Peyton say about him? It's like he was built to be a quarterback, to be a successful quarterback. I'm looking at more of what the upside is because you think about it, he actually came out in 2018 with some other guys, but he redshirted 2018. He didn't play or started 2 games in 2019, at Penn State.
He couldn't beat out Sean Clifford.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, you look at all that, and then you look at, the biggest knock on him at Kentucky was, well, he didn't have the talent around him. Well, you had Wan'Dale Robinson, which that was his best
and Brown was really good last year.
Mm-hmm.
And Dane Key as well. But, he had his best year at Kentucky was Wan'Dale Robinson. But the problem is in the NFL is you got to spread the ball around a little bit more.
You can't just key in on one guy because they'll cook you in the NFL.
And Wan'Dale Robinson was really good, but he was that Dexter McCluster. Forgive me for the Ole Miss reference because that's what I know best. But he was your shifty slot. You could pitch it. Right. You could get him quick and get him in motion. You can get him with room to run.
Gimmicky almost. Not that, but just a little
gadget. I think gadget is the word that
gimmicky is more negative. Gadget type player.
And do I think, how you said either, Josh Allen or Paxton Lynch, do I think he has the intangibles to beat Josh Allen? Because just if you think about it, Josh Allen he's not top tier yet. Like
I disagree on that.
Well, I'm just saying like Patrick Mahomes type, because you look at big time games, Patrick Mahomes, you got a great. In your mind, you're like, all right, we're winning this game.
Right.
Now, do I think Josh Allen will be there in the next year or two? Absolutely. The kid's
he's so close, but he's not there.
But he's just not there yet.
I'm with you.
And I think Will Levis could maybe not get to Josh Allen's status, but I think he could work toward it. I don't know. The thing I look at is the upside of it. He's got a great upside, but if they take him, he could be a Ryan Leaf. You never know.
Well, I think it's going to be the right system. I think like we're talking about, like he doesn't need to go to Atlanta. He doesn't need to go to Indy. He needs to go to a place you said like Buffalo, like Tennessee, like somebody that has an established starting quarterback where he can learn and he can grow and he can cut his teeth on the bench, develop his skills, get with the right coaching staff, training staff, and we'll see what happens. I'm not disagreeing. The intangibles are absolutely there. He has shown flickers of greatness. He is Brett Favre-esque in a sense that he
Right.
trusts his arm a little bit too much in some situations. You can coach that out of him. You know, it made Brett Favre a ton of money in a long NFL career being a gunslinger. It could happen. I mean, it's definitely the precedent is there. I see the film, and I don't think it's there yet.
And that's not why he will be drafted, is based on his college film. That's kind of the point that I was making, is like,
right.
So it's all in in we've talked about Indianapolis. So they have a brand new GM and a brand new head coach. They've got some time. So if they go and say, all right, we're going to give somebody who's going to be the best quarterback in 4 years. If you tell me, if you come to me and you're convinced that it's Will Levis, then take Will Levis. Because an argument can be made, and I would listen to it. If I had the number one pick, I'm taking Bryce Young. I said that at the end of the college football season. I'm saying it now. I think he's the best quarterback size. If you want to, I'm not going to draft a quarterback based on size alone, but given his size and his ability and his brain, I'm taking him number one. He's as close. There is no buzz potential outside of
toughness. It's toughness in big time games. Man, he makes big time plays.
Yeah, more so than CJ Stroud. He's been in more big games than Levis and Richardson combined. So
you look at, conversely, you know, teams like it sounds like Carolina's taking Bryce Young. So you look at the Colts or outside of the Colts, you look at the Cardinals,
Houston's
Bears,
number 2.
You know, the Texans. You know, who wants somebody to win now versus who wants somebody to build. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to argue with anybody that says that is convinced that Will Levis will develop into something. Like, we trust our development team, and we're going to develop him the best way we know how and hand him the keys. Okay, that's fine. I think he is a terrible person because he puts mayonnaise in his coffee, and I couldn't trust that I can develop somebody. That's like me taking in a stray dog, and the first day he comes and chews my flat screen TV in half, and I'm like, I can fix him. Like, I just don't think Will Levis as a person is fixable.
There's no coming back from like I understand if you accidentally grab the wrong jar, but there's no coming back from purposely putting mayonnaise in your coffee. I'm not handing the keys to my franchise.
How do you stumble upon that discovery? It's like the first person that discovered milk. I always liked that joke, you know, like, what were you doing to that cow to decide to find out that milk tasted good, you know? Like, how do you stumble upon putting mayonnaise in coffee? Was it passed down to you from your family? Because they need to be extradited.
Because I have more questions about that.
Gitmo. Well, it's a reopened Gitmo, you know?
Well, you know, we all make mistakes in life. And I believe
that was a public them.
That's a public one he should have kept quiet.
So you're saying
the PR team
that
he
told people about.
Yeah.
He needs to hire a PR team like yesterday.
That's right. and
so
he'll get problem, that in NFL.
So that just goes to show you the extent in which people will defend their favorite players. I'm telling you, the problem is that he puts mayonnaise in coffee. You're saying the problem is he told people.
Oh yeah, facts. Yeah. Because the banana peel is fine. You know, there's people that eat bananas with peels all the time.
Yep. No,
they're called
mammals that do it, but not people.
The mayonnaise is unacceptable.
Absolutely unacceptable. All right, so we've talked some quarterbacks here. Aaron, thank you for your insight. You know, I think we're all on the same page. Kind of a bygone conclusion. That first overall pick is going to be Mr. Bryce Young from the University of Alabama. Going to Carolina, which that's tough, man. That's a tough situation. Carolina's had a rough go at it with quarterbacks.
Our boy Parks Frazier is the quarterbacks coach at Carolina now.
Yep.
He followed Frank Reich, brought him in to Carolina.
That's right.
So he will get firsthand experience. I mean, he will be the guy to develop the quarterback they take.
He's got a dude, man. If he gets Bryce Young, he's got a pretty good situation. Mel Kiper at number 2. We'll kind of roll through the top 10 and any comments I want to make on that. Quickly, we got Houston Texans at number 2. They need a quarterback, and rumors are looking like DeMeco Ryans is going to select CJ Stroud as his quarterback of the future.
You know, actually, I have seen reports, stories, you know, tweets that have came out and said they really love that Tyree and the defensive tackle.
So he's a
And
linebacker from Texas Tech.
Yeah, the quote that I saw, I was like, now that's a strategy I like. They said, I'm not going to take a quarterback that I don't love at number 2 because he's there, and I'm scared I'm going. Like, I love that strategy. Like, I know quarterbacks, but again, new coach, new GM, play the long game, get the best player.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that are picking Tyree Wilson ahead of Will Anderson because Will Anderson is kind of a smaller. He's more of a true outside linebacker where Tyree can play in that 3-4 set because he's a big linebacker. I was going to ask y'all who y'all sleepers were in the draft. Tyree Wilson was going to be mine. The guy is a gamer. He's got a high motor. And what I've seen that rumor, but a new coach needs a new quarterback, a new opportunity to start over. By and large, CBS, ESPN has the Texans taking C.J. Stroud. Tyree's probably getting some traction, but if not, he goes in the 3rd pick. Arizona Cardinals coming up next, one of the worst teams in the NFL. They have their quarterback that they're still trying out in Kyler Murray, one of the worst rosters around him. But again, take the best player. CBS, ESPN has Tyree Wilson going 3rd overall. According to CBS,
I feel sorry for whoever goes to Arizona.
What a dumpster fire, man.
For sure.
I mean, it's just I love the term poverty franchise, but like they can't do anything right. They paid their franchise quarterback a ton of money and had to put in the contract that you had to watch film.
Yeah,
like it's just reeks of ineptitude.
And all he wants to do is play. Yeah, all Kyler Murray wants to do is play Call of Duty.
Yeah, and so if they want to take a stab at something, go take C.J. Stroud, and maybe he's a better version of Kyler Murray.
Yeah, if he's there at number 3, give you put some heat to Kyler Murray. Hey, here's our future if you don't act right. Talking about the film clause that we spoke of him earlier, Jamarcus Russell. There's that famous story about him with the Raiders where they sent home blank tapes of game film and asked him to come back and talk about it. And when they asked him about it, he was like, "Yeah, I watched him and saw this, this, and this." And they said, "Those were blank tapes, buddy," and called him in a lie that he wasn't watching film at home like he was supposed to be.
If it weren't for him being such a doofus, Lane Kiffin may never be at Ole Miss because that was Lane Kiffin's team.
Yep, it was. Moving on, number 4 pick is the Indianapolis Colts. We talked about it. ESPN, Mel Kiper has Will Levis going there. CBS has Anthony Richardson going there. Either way, it looks like they're taking a quarterback.
Well, based on what I've kind of seen of just floating around, it seems, and based on the panic attack that our good buddy Patrick Jones has been having, it seems like they're not going to let Will Levis go past them. Now, that could be smoke and mirrors. You know how reports get draft week. But I'm watching that. Well,
and Anthony Richardson, I don't understand. I guess he's in the same boat as Will Levis, but I don't understand why they see so highly in Anthony Richardson when he missed more wide receivers this year than,
I think Richardson
had seen.
Even more than Levis, Richardson's getting hype based on his
combine,
his build. His last year in college, was starting a brand new system. He went from Dan Mullen, who is, quarterback whisperer when Dan Mullen's good anyways. He's Mr. Quarterback Whisperer. I turned Dak Prescott from a 2-star wide receiver to all SEC quarterback, that guy. Yep. Then they went to a not Division II, but a Group of 5 head coach that took over, a good coach by all means, but first year in system. And so I think everybody's just, even more than Levis, they're writing off his stats as a junior at Florida.
Yeah, and it reeks of Mitch Trubisky, a very small sample size. We're hyping him up because he's a quarterback in this draft, and I just don't know that he's got the wherewithal to be that dude.
That's so scared to call anybody Mitch Trubisky. I mean, that is the Michael Jordan of draft day flops.
Yeah. Next up, Seattle Seahawks selecting a defensive player, either Jalen Carter or Will Anderson. I think both of those guys are can't-miss players. Jalen Carter,
obviously.
If
either of those guys fall to 6, I mean, you're getting a steal.
Yeah, absolutely. 5 or 6. And I think you take one. Jalen Carter's got some, obviously some legal issues he's staring at with the unfortunate crash that killed the Georgia football trainer and injured a couple of the football players.
Killed a football player.
Killed a football player and a trainer. And there's some legal stuff going on there. But the on-field production, when he was healthy, man, he was a force and will
Mel
be
Kiper,
that for you.
Mel Kiper has in his rankings, not his mock draft, but his rankings, has Jalen Carter as the best player in this draft.
Yeah. And it's not close. You know, when he does have a tendency to take some plays off, but when he doesn't, like I watched him against Mississippi State this year, and we couldn't block him with 4 dudes, man. There was nothing we could do when he was on. And the guy is an absolute game changer when he's on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And same with Will Anderson. Will Anderson is a force, high motor, doesn't quit kind of guy. Like he's the one you always had to know where 31 was when you played Alabama, because he would absolutely get after your quarterback and could be a game changer in the NFL. He's got the skill set that translates like a Von Miller, like an Elvis Dumervil, that can absolutely just bum rush a quarterback and make differences.
Elvis Dumervil, you say?
Pulling that one out.
I'm telling you, you pulled that one out.
Talking about Will Levis, though, or Will Anderson there in Houston. I heard the Texans might lean towards him and then try to take a quarterback if he falls into 12 there.
That was kind of part B to that story I read, that they weren't going to reach for a quarterback they weren't convinced in. Mm-hmm. And Will Anderson, in an interview, said, "Yeah, I love the role they have for me." Like
Well, and what better coach to go to than DeMeco Ryans, who played at Alabama?
Oh man,
All-American in Alabama.
Not to mention being a great defensive coordinator in San Francisco. I mean, that fits the mold perfectly for them.
You know, he has to lean that way.
Yeah,
he's got to, as a defensive player, to have a guy like DeMeco Ryans sitting in the room from you. Yeah. You know, that's got to carry a lot of weight.
And if they weren't such a poverty franchise, that hiring would make me nervous, because DeMeco is a phenomenal coach, players coach, and is going to do a good job there.
Listen, unless I don't know anything about their ownership situation, so maybe it's the owner's fault. You know, I put a lot of. I'd buy some stock in the Texans based on DeMeco Ryans.
Yeah,
I really do.
Coach. I met him at a football camp at Northeast Community College. Super guy, just really a really genuinely nice, humble guy, and a great coach. And if he won in the division, I'd wish him super well. But anyway, kind of consensus number 7, Las Vegas Raiders taking a cornerback out of Illinois. Shout out Lauren Massey, Devin Witherspoon from Illinois. Followed up at number 8 by the Atlanta Falcons. Mel Kiper has them taking Nolan Smith, which I think will be a great pick. He has missed quite a bit of time. He tore that pec this past year, but when he was on the field, number 13 was a mean dude for that Georgia defense. He's a leader. He's a ball hawk. He's always seemed to be around the ball making plays. Linebacker for by Mel Kiper. CBS has them taking Christian Gonzalez, a quarterback out of Oregon. Both defensive issues, because look, the Falcons' defense was bad. They think they still have a quarterback in Desmond Ridder, going to give him a little bit of a shot to try it out, but that defense was atrocious.
I've seen Atlanta floated for Bijan Robinson as well, the running back out of Texas.
That's a relatively new, and he's really starting to shoot up some draft boards.
He's incredible.
So good.
The problem is where you draft running backs these days.
They're not top 10.
The best rookie running back, and we need to talk about Aaron Rodgers a little bit, but the best rookie running back last year until he got hurt was Breece Hall. And he was second round pick, you know.
Yeah.
He's a beast.
Yeah. As good as Bijan Robinson is, we're not in an era that takes running backs in the top 10.
Yeah.
A quick run of offensive linemen to wrap out the top 10. And then number 9, Chicago Bears, Darnell Wright from Tennessee, or Broderick Jones from Georgia on CBS, getting some protection from Justin Fields, because God knows he needs it. They've gotten him a couple of weapons. DJ Moore with one of the steals of the offseason. It's a great matchup with him and Justin Fields. Give him somebody that can give him some time to get the ball to DJ Moore, and that team is going to be a lot better.
And putting him with Claypool, that's big time.
Yeah, Claypool still can show me some stuff, but he's definitely he's got talent.
I worry about his motor.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. 10th overall, the Eagles, according to Mel Kiper, is Peter Skoronski from Northwestern. He could play tackle or guard, addressing some offensive line issues there. CBS has Bijan Robinson going 10th overall. There are some rumors around Derrick Henry going to Philly. I don't think that's going to happen. Maybe they go get a running back in Bijan Robinson from Texas.
You talking about switching fan bases here? A.J. Brown and Derrick Henry are both playing for the Eagles. I reckon you can change.
Nope. All good on that.
All right. So, your original question was who's lower than you think, or who are you buying? Aaron, do you have a thought on that?
Who would I buy? My sleeper?
Yeah, like a sleeper, buy low candidate.
I honestly thought Jalen Carter because with his
buy the dip with the legal trouble
stuff.
With the legal issues. I think if he slips down, and then of course I think if his legal issues are resolved, I believe he could be still a beast. He could be somebody's,
he's
gem.
He's no doubt a candidate at a 101.
Especially if you get him in at 8-9 pick because he falls a little bit. I mean, that would be the steal of the draft. I do not disagree.
Yeah. To me, I'm not a big draft Nick, I am an Ole Miss fan, and it's my biggest fault. I'm always interested in seeing how players who kind of like the Will Levis argument we had, players who don't have huge college careers, but are enamored with body style, combine freaks. Ole Miss has got one of those in the draft this year, and Jonathan Mingo. He was a number 1 receiver. Mel Kiper had him, I believe, at 47th overall in his ranking of prospects. And I'm telling you, it was probably scheme. I don't know if he dealt with some injuries as well. That's a little shocking to me. He's got the build. I mean, he's built like A.J. Brown. I mean, the dude is built like a number 1 receiver. He's got all the tools. So that's who I'm watching. I'm curious to see where he ends up because he's got the build. It's in the Phil Longo days at Ole Miss, when you had A.J. DK, DeMarcus Lodge, and Dawson Knox on the same team, and you went 6-6, and Dawson Knox never caught a touchdown. I could tell you, Dawson Knox is good.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Ole Miss had some pretty good teams, and he was on a 10-win team at Ole Miss, and it was just like they spread the ball around just a little too much for him to really show out, and so maybe that's what it is. But I am watching Jonathan Mingo there.
Yeah. I mentioned Tyree Wilson earlier. I think another one to watch. I just love watching this dude work out and film this guy. I'm a trenches kind of guy. Is Paris Johnson from Ohio State. That tackle moves like a tight end, is just mean. And I would love for the Titans to take him at 11th. Definitely need some offensive line help. If he's there, that's a steal at 11. There's that video of him working out where he's just an absolute monster. A dude that big should not move that well. And then, speaking of our homers, Mississippi State does have a potential first-round pick, and a lot of guys are linking him to the Pittsburgh Steelers at 17, and that's Emmanuel Forbes, SEC all-time leader in pick sixes. A guy as skinny as a rail. He's like 160 pounds at 6'3", but he's a playmaker. He's just always at the right place at the right time. Great instincts. Very translatable skills. And Mississippi State's had a few corners that are stepping up and playing a lot of ball. Martin Emerson is an every game starter now for the Browns, and an undersized guy as well. And so I watched
the Steelers once upon a time drafted, actually they didn't draft one of my top 5 favorite Ole Miss players of all time, Mike Hilton, now with the Cincinnati Bengals. The nickelback who blitzes, and he's about 5'8". He never misses a tackle. That guy.
Yeah.
They also drafted the SEC leader in interceptions that year, Sinquez Golson,
right?
Who I believe got his ball hawking skills from playing outfield because he was an incredible baseball player. And so
I think Forbes fits that mold and will be a ball hawk in the NFL just like he was in college.
Right.
Well, and I think, going off, Ole Miss and State, I think one of my sleepers is probably Carrington Valentine, a cornerback out of UK. they loved his measurables at the combine, talking about his length and everything. But talking about Jonathan Mingo real quick, I've seen 2 reports out of San Francisco that he's visited out there, and they absolutely love him. And I would love to have him put out there with Debo and Ayuk.
He's a guy because Debo and Ayuk are both like best when you give them the ball and give them some space.
Yeah.
Right.
Mingo could be your downfield guy.
Oh yeah. Or
he's just a big target too. He's a big guy that you can target.
Get high point of he can high point of football. You the same kind of philosophy that had Ole Miss recruiting AJ Brown and DK Metcalf is the reason why they went after why did I just blank? Jonathan Mingo.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's the same build, same guy,
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what you're going to get. You're going to get a physical guy who can go up and get the ball, stiff arm you, and he's not going to break away speed, but if you can high point a football 40 yards down the field, is almost as good.
Yeah. I think this year's draft, like so many times we have drafts that just go by the tape. There's just like pick 1, pick 2, pick 3, just exactly how they play out. There's so many smoke screens and trades being talked about and rumors coming out. I think this year's draft might be interesting to watch, much like, as Drew mentioned earlier, we'll talk about this briefly before we wrap up. Going a little long tonight. That's all right. Got a lot to talk about. It was the Aaron Rodgers saga, getting him to the Jets. There was back on March the 15th, it's well over a month ago for those of you keeping up at home, that he said, I want to play for the New York Jets. And then they handpicked all of his receivers, all of his targets, which he said he didn't have any good receivers in Green Bay, yet all those receivers are now in New York. But anyway, and said, I want to play for the Jets. And then it took until today, until last night, for it to happen, April 24th, Aaron Rodgers is finally a Jet. He followed in Brett Favre's footsteps to the day, almost, I believe it was to the day that he signed with the New York Jets, following his predecessor out that way. The Jets Super Bowl odds went from plus 400 to plus 140 just by signing Aaron Rodgers. Massive uptick.
Yeah, I thought I was gonna shock the world and say that they should be considered a favorite in the AFC. I'm sorry. The AFC. Not the favorite, but a favorite. Up there with, your typical Kansas City, Cincinnati, Buffalo. They're in they're going to have to they're going to have to play Buffalo twice a year, which is a problem. Miami twice a year, which is a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, you're taking that Jets team who had an incredible defense, had Garrett Wilson who was incredible, and then hopefully a healthy Breece Hall, and then the player that's forgotten about, and I know I keep sounding like a homer, but Elijah Moore was really good there as a rookie.
He was.
And Zach Wilson refused to throw him the ball.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so to the point to where he requested a trade. And so he's got weapons, man.
Yeah. And so I sorry, they went from plus 400 to win the division to plus 140. They're plus 700 to win the AFC. They're plus 1,200 to win the Super Bowl. So they're still a little bit high, but I mean, that's a lot better than what they were 24 hours ago.
So for $100, I can take Aaron Rodgers to win the Super Bowl with a return of $1,200.
Right.
I mean, I like those odds. I mean, I know
bad.
Aaron Rodgers hasn't exactly flourished in the playoffs lately, but he's still Aaron Rodgers.
There's going to be some good weapons. That defense is also really good with Sauce Gardner, CJ Mosley when he's healthy. That defense, Quentin Williamson, is good. Those dudes can play, man.
If they bring back Quentin Williams, did you see what he tweeted out today? It was fun. It was funny. So
of course, this is the same man who sneezed, blessed himself, and thanked himself on draft day.
Yeah, I love Quentin Williams. So Quentin Williams, he is up for an extension. Trying to remember how to spell Quentin.
2 N's.
Quininn.
Yeah.
Or Quinenn.
There it is. Quinnnen. So there was a tweet that said Joe Douglas, which I'm assuming is the GM of the Jets, said the Jets are, quote, optimistic and hopeful on getting a deal done with Quentin Williams. And Quentin Williams, quote tweeted it with himself sipping a cup of tea like Kermit. Yeah. That's all he did. And so, for
Nice.
those of y'all who are not watching the live stream, I just showed the tweet up to the camera here, but it's Quentin Williams with holding a cup of tea and giving the side eye like, "Oh, you are really optimistic and hopeful because I don't feel it." You know?
Yeah, that makes one of us.
Yeah.
But I think that changed the landscape in the AFC. Maybe, again, Aaron Rodgers
of course, it changed the landscape.
He was not good last year. I think that he has a bounce back year. He'll be a lot better, got better weapons, but I mean, he was not good last year.
And there's a lot that goes into that, though. You remember what he came into this year. He wanted to get traded last year. He signed a 1-year deal with an exit, basically. And so he was not invested. He wanted to do his herbal mushroom tea and get away and sit in his dark room
with the mushrooms.
And he was always frustrated, as he should have been.
Sure.
He never had any weapons. He won them one Super Bowl, and I mean he got beaten another, I believe, and so they never drafted a quarterback. I mean a receiver in the first 2 rounds in his whole tenure there.
Yeah.
Right.
All while drafting a quarterback in the first round 3 years ago before he left. Yeah. So of course he's unhappy, and he wasn't going to break his neck for that team. He knew he was leaving.
Yeah, you're probably right.
But he is 38 years old. I mean, Father Time is undefeated except for Tom Brady and LeBron James.
Yeah.
And Aaron Ivey.
Yeah, and Udonis Haslam apparently because he's still playing basketball at 40.
Well, and if you think about Aaron Rodgers, he won that Super Bowl. He had a top 10 defense. The Jets defense, the Jets defense has the potential to be there. And if they get there and he has a bounce back year, I mean, watch out, AFC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just hope they don't play the Niners because the Niners are his kryptonite.
I was going to bring that up.
Yeah.
The 49ers are 4-0 in the playoffs against Aaron Rodgers. So
absolutely. Absolutely.
So you're probably mad he went to the AFC, right?
If you want to be honest, I was kind of mad he didn't come to San Francisco. Come home to where he's from. Listen, do you know how many yards he could have picked up with Christian McCaffrey, Debo, Ayuk, George Kittle?
Well, he's at that point of his career like Tom Brady where he's looking for those dump-offs and out routes and slants, and that West Coast offense
I don't think that's what Aaron Rodgers is looking for.
I think he fit perfect.
He's a slinger, man, and that's home. I mean, he was always the same argument that Tom Brady was made for Tom Brady when he might go to San Francisco. Northern California's home.
Yeah. But Aaron's been in that small market. He wanted that taste, that New York lifestyle. I don't know if his girlfriend Blue of Earth is more keen on New York or whatever, but you never know. Maybe a better mushroom supply up there.
Who?
Y'all heard about his girlfriend? Her name's like Blue of Earth or something, and she's the one that turned him on to like all these mushrooms and all this herbal stuff. Like,
well, I'm about to live stream me Googling this person. What'd you call her?
Her name is Blue of Earth.
That ain't her God-given name.
I know there ain't no way. That is not her Christian name. That's for sure.
BLU.
Yeah, even better.
That's not a girlfriend, right?
That's what they were. They were something last year because she was the one that turned him on to all that.
Let me just. Okay, this girl.
He's dipping into like Paul Rudd and Wanderlust.
Drew, be careful now on your searches over there.
Yeah. So, you know how Google, when you Google somebody's name, it says people also ask. The second one on this list says, "Why is Blue of Earth stuck in Peru?" From December 22, based on her elaborate Instagram stories and updates, Blue of Earth is currently trapped in Peru as their political situation is worsened, with their former president Pedro Castillo ousted. Protests are breaking out across the country. As a result, the roads and airports are blocked. So in December of 2022, she was stuck in Peru.
I did not have talking about the political climate in Peru on my bingo card for tonight.
Hey, Well, nobody's gonna win. It's like
That's it.
betting on Rusty's picks. Nobody's gonna win.
Well, guys, it's been fun. I want to wrap up with one last thing. Your Mississippi State Bulldogs are officially, 3-1 this year against the Ole Miss Rebels. Won the Governor's Cup tonight, 2-1. Hoisted that cup tonight. Won the series once again, dating back 7 years in a row. We beat Ole Miss in baseball series. Thanks for coming out.
It's a good thing you won that game, or you would not have won the series. You know what's funny is I knew it was on tonight. I stumbled across it on Twitter eating dinner tonight that we were down 1-0 in the top of the first. Never looked at it again. So you telling me that we lost was me finding out in real time.
Yeah. Went up 2-0, won 2-1, won the Governor's Cup right where it belongs back in Starkville, along with that Egg Bowl.
I'm telling you. You know it's a poverty franchise if you're excited about winning a trophy over a team that is currently 4-14.
This is what happens. Ole Miss fans will rationalize their season like, oh, it doesn't matter to us when we lose. But by gosh, if they'd won that Governor's Cup, or if they'd won that series in Starkville, or if they'd won that Egg Bowl, it would be all we'd be hearing about, much like the national championship from last year.
Oh, well, see, that's the difference. Is we won the national championship, and you treat Ole Miss as if it was the national championship.
Here we go. This is the ultimate Ole Miss rationalization. We're your national champions.
I don't do this. I genuinely do not do this to troll you.
I'm sure. It's in your nature as an Ole Miss fan. When you lose the game, it doesn't matter. But when you win, it's all that matters.
Oh, I didn't say it doesn't matter, but it sucks. But for you to say like, "Oh, we won the Governor's Cup," and I'm like, hey, "Oh, we're 4-14." Like
we ain't much better. It's low hanging fruit for us in Starkville this year, man. We get run ruled and swept and destroyed. You got to take wins when you can get them, man.
Okay, but a win's a win. I get it. But
UK swept Mississippi State this year in baseball.
Absolutely, and it's beat us by 3 touchdowns one day.
If Ole Miss would have beaten State this weekend, I'd have been like, "We won the series and we suck."
Easy to say, man. Easy to say.
It's the truth. Just hate me if you want.
Aaron, buddy, thanks for being on tonight. Any last bit of wisdom about Kentucky baseball, Will Levis, Kentucky basketball? I know John Calipari
putting together a class again.
Yeah, he is, but what's he gonna do with it, man? I know there's some rumbles up there.
He's not.
You know the biggest thing about Cal is he keeps bringing in top recruits. You see guys hitting the portal now. I haven't been this excited about a team coming in a long time because, we talk about culture. The DJ Wagners and Justin Edwards is coming in. They play with an edge, and UK basketball has really lost that edge over the years. And I think next year is going to turn around in the basketball. Football, I think we're gonna be pretty tough in the East, obviously.
Right.
We'll probably finish third.
I don't think you'll ever suck with
Stoops.
With Stoops.
No, yeah. I agree.
I don't think you'll ever compete on like a national level.
Right. But that was a lottery hire for us.
Yeah, I mean, there is an absolute quantitative value to not sucking.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something for a program like Kentucky, and this is not a shot by any means.
Right.
They hang their hat on basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Calipari gets all the arrows if they're not good.
Right.
It is an easy job to stay at if you can be good, if you can be respectable.
You win 7-8 games a year, they'll build a statue outside of Kroger Field. I mean,
yeah, and I hope that Kentucky football appreciates what they've got because it's what State had with Mullen and what State had with Kroom, whereas you had the guy that could get you 6 to 8 wins every year.
Yeah.
But until you start putting the expectation on that you need to win 10 this year, you need to compete for SEC East this year, that's when you make a good thing. You try to get to make a good thing be great.
Yeah.
You end up with something very, very bad.
Yep.
in a new
Right.
coach, you know?
Yeah, you take your 8-win consistently, you get a 9-win, you celebrate it, but the
Yep.
expectation is your 7-8 wins, going to a mid-level SEC bowl game, and Kentucky football fans, Aaron, I'm sure you can agree, will be
Yep.
very happy with that.
Oh yeah,
Get-
Music
me
City
the
Bowl,
basketball
Outback
season.
Bowl.
Yeah, get me the basketball season.
Hey, go to Outback Bowl. Give me a. They don't do blooming onions anymore. It's now
Yeah.
the ReliQuest Bowl. But hey, listen, man, go get you some internet protection there.
Oh yeah, and listen, fellas, when once we move in a month, football season comes around. I promise you, I'm going to get you guys up there in UK for a tailgating. I've been to Ole Miss to the Grove. I actually was there when Bo Wallace beat Alabama, and that was unbelievable to sit there with game day and all that.
October the 4th, 2014. I was on a tour bus headed to Ocean Springs, Mississippi. I missed it. It's the biggest regret of my life.
I had just moved down here August 14th of 2014, and so that was an awesome thing to get to go. UK was the only SEC team field I've been to before. Ole Miss was awesome, and Mississippi State. I went to Mississippi State when we won there, and that was an awesome tailgating. But I'm going to tell you something. Lexington puts it down on tailgating, and that was when we were awful, and so now we're respectable now.
Yeah.
And so I could only imagine what it is.
We'll take this show on the road. We'll do a podcast from the tailgates.
Absolutely.
Hey, that'd be awesome.
I would love it.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, if I could get you up to Rupp Arena, I promise you, it'd change your whole mindset about college basketball. It's unbelievable there.
Oh, don't tell me about Rupp Arena until you sit in the pavilion in Ole Miss and watch a 4-10 team compete against Kentucky.
I did. I watched Isaiah Briscoe from Kentucky get a triple-double.
Yeah.
Against them.
Brighter times are on the horizon for Ole Miss basketball.
Go.
I've never been able to say it before. So,
all right, boys.
we made it almost the whole podcast without me talking about Ole Miss and LSU this weekend. So let's just end it.
Yeah, that sounds good. It was ugly baseball. Other than that, had a couple little close games, but all in all, a sweep, still a sweep.
Yep, that's it.
And guys, I want to say thank you for letting me join this podcast. I absolutely love it. I love what you guys are doing. I love both of you guys, man, like brothers. And I just want to say thank you again. Hopefully we stay in touch when we get moved.
Oh, no doubt about that, my brother. So I appreciate you coming on. We love you too.
Yeah.
And we need to get together before you decide to head on up north.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll make that happen, and I'm gonna get home later in the month and towards the end of May, and we'll definitely make that happen before you go. And listen, we'll need a field reporter in Lexington for Kentucky games. We'll get you back on for our SEC preview later this summer. This will not be your last time on the podcast, man. Great job. It was awesome having you on here. Again, guys at home, at 2 Buck Sports Podcast or at 2 Buck Sports Pod on Instagram, Twitter, 2 Buck Sports Podcast on Facebook. Like, share, comment, review. Please, please, please help us get the word out through those. And as always, we'll see you right back here next week.
Aaron, tell Nikki, Calvin, and Maverick we all said hey. And everybody, thanks for joining in with us. Check in, tell your wife, tell your mama, tell your daddy, tell your kids. Tune in, like, rate, subscribe. Give us some questions. Anytime we get a question, we promise to answer it on the podcast next week. So enjoyed it, fellas. Rusty, thanks for hanging out with me for working with me, given our busy schedule. Grizz in 7. Like I've said the whole time, I haven't said anything other than Grizz in 7. So have a good week, guys.
See you guys.
See you, fellas.